For most of human history, men were prized for their masculine traits. Things like strength, bravery, the ability to press on, the ability to press through even in difficult times is what really led our culture and our society to make it what it is today. Wars were fought by men. Most rulers were men. Most of the great pioneers and explorers were men. Yes, women had their place, but they relied on men to get them through. But over the course of the last 80 to 100 years, the illusion of safety has led to the rise of what people call toxic masculinity, which toxic masculinity really isn't a thing. It's really just all those things that got our culture to the way where it is now. But this illusion of safety has allowed that to build up. 150 years ago, the world has been full of male heroes. Women too. Women absolutely have their place. Trust me, I love women. They're great. My mother is one. My daughter is one too. My sister is also one. But the world isn't as safe as it seems. Just 150 years ago, as settlers traveled from the East Coast to the West Coast in wagon trains, they were constantly bombarded with a list of dangers. Like their daily survival was constantly in question. Disease, starvation, constantly under threat of attack. Without men being men, without the strength to do the hard physical labor and to press through when things were really tough, without that ability, the West Coast would have never been settled. There are literal graveyards all across the Oregon Trail and other trails that were traveled in the settling of this country. Just in the last 100 years, 2 world wars have been fought, plus countless others. Men fought and died in World War I and World War II. Vietnam, Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan. The list goes on. And it's always been men on the front lines of those battles. Again, I'm not saying that women don't have their place, but as the world has grown seemingly safer, those men's roles, that aggression and that strength has started to take a back seat. But we need that more than ever. As I said, this safety that we feel is an illusion. The power grid could go down. America these days, their power grid, if you trust the experts, power grid is very vulnerable to attack. And the estimates of the number of people that would die if the power grid went down is somewhere between 70 and 80%, I believe, within the first 30 days. That's how non-resolute we are. This safety that we feel, it's a false sense of safety. It's temporary, right? It's not a permanent reality. Things could switch. Things could flip at any moment. The absence of war, famine, and hardship has made people believe that the strength, that the masculinity that men portray isn't necessary anymore. Men have been mocked for their productive instincts because the world appears safe, but it really is not. Maybe externally, maybe our very survival, the ability to make it from one day to the next, maybe food provisions, we can literally run down to the grocery store and buy pretty much whatever we need. Yes, that's there. But there's other threats. Threats of our morals, the threats of our values, the threats of who we are is constantly being bombarded. The rise of feminized men, because now that true masculine men are constantly being berated, beat down, men feel like they can't be men anymore. So they start to act like women because those traits are actually the ones that are praised. And then we get these boss babes that are like, yeah, the women who are being aggressive, who are being strong. Because guess what? Regardless of what they tell you, women want strong, brave men. My story demonstrates this. Growing up, I had some decently strong male role models, but men were constantly preached at that they were never good enough, that all that they were there for was to try to make the women's lives better, to make them happy. The whole happy wife, happy life thing, I don't buy it. Because women don't just want to be happy, They want to feel safe. They want to feel taken care of and provided for. So whether they're happy or not, if they have a roof over their head, if they feel protected, they're going to feel at peace. And that man is he's not going to have to show aggression. He's going to be doing that in his everyday life, and it's going to be there constantly. And so, like I said, I grew up with some pretty decent male role models, but again, a lot of the women in my life, like women were raised up here and the men were constantly beat down. We were told that we needed to be more in touch with our feelings. We needed to put aside the aggression. We needed to put aside these things that made us men in order to appease our wives. And that is a big piece of what led to my eventual downfall, my family falling apart. My ex-wife wanted that from me. She wanted me to lead my family. Deep down inside, whether she said it or not, deep down, she wanted me to be leading the family in prayer, to be taking them to church, to be leading the spiritual, physical, emotional home. And I wasn't very good at it because I wasn't prepared for it, because I wasn't taught it growing up. My father was a decent example, but he didn't lead our family that well. He made plenty of mistakes, and in my personal opinion, he was a little too in touch with his feelings sometimes. He was kind of ruled by his emotions. And as a result of me not seeing this and not understanding and knowing how to behave and act like a man like I needed to, I eventually lost my entire family. My faith, my health, because I was passive. And then I realized that no one was coming to save me. And I turned my life back to God, and everything changed for me. Weak men wait for help. Strong men become the help that they and other people need. No one is coming to save you. The moment you accept that, life becomes better. So that's my story. I want to read a story out of the Bible. I've been feeling like I need to do this. Like, I need to tell you my story, but I also need to give you examples from the Word of God. This is the story of Ahab and Jezebel. If you've grown up in the church at all or spent much time around it, you're familiar with the story. You're familiar with the Jezebel spirit, what they're referring to. Jezebel was the queen of Israel, and Ahab was the king. And to my knowledge, this is the first time there were ever two rulers in one kingdom in Israel at the same time. And also, I believe the only time that they were ever mentioned that there was a queen. Ahab was weak. Ahab was not a leader. And he leaned on Jezebel to, quote unquote, do his dirty work. So I'm going to read you the story of Naboth and Ahab and Jezebel. And I'll give you a little commentary as we go along, but I just want you to hear this. It's a little bit long, but we'll just get right through it. Now Naboth, the Jezreelite, had a vineyard in Jezreel, beside the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And after this, Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden." See, he's the king, but he wants this particular piece of land for another vegetable garden. He's not satisfied with what he has. "Because it is near my house, and I will give you a better vineyard for it. Or if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money." But Naboth said to Ahab, Naboth being a strong, confident man, "The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance of my fathers." And Ahab went into his house vexed and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he had said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers." And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and would eat no food. Basically, he went home, and this is the ancient Israel version of going down into your mom's basement, laying on your bed and throwing a fit. That's what he was doing. But Jezebel, his wife, came into him and said to him, "Why is your spirit so vexed that you eat no food?" And he said to her, "Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite, and he said to him, 'Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it please you, I will give you another vineyard for it.' And he said, 'I will not give you my vineyard.' And Jezebel his wife said to him, 'Do you not govern Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, She's manipulating him. She's playing on his weakness. So she wrote letters to Ahab. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal. And she sent the letters to the elders and the leaders who lived in Naboth in the city. And she wrote in the letters, proclaim a fast and let Naboth at the head of the table, and set 2 worthless men opposite him, and let them bring a charge against him, saying, you have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death. She's manipulating things behind the scenes. And this is the spirit of Jezebel. This is the kind of stuff that she was known for. And the men of the city, the elders and leaders who lived in his city, did as Jezebel had sent word to them, as it was written in the letters that she had sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and set Naboth at the head of the people. And the 2 worthless, spineless, weak men, came in and sat opposite him. And the worthless men brought a charge against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth cursed God and the king. So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death with stones. And then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned. He is dead. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, arise and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you, but I got for you for money. But Naboth is not alive, but dead. And as soon as Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab arose to go to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. So Ahab threw a fit, showing weakness and passivity, and got his wife, Jezebel, to do the work for him. Don't worry, the ending of the story is good, and we'll get to that in a minute. So technically Ahab was the king, but he surrendered his power to Jezebel. He avoided conflict and let evil flourish. He thought he could have comfort and power at the same time, but he couldn't. Men aren't designed to live a life of comfort. We're designed to live a life where we make ourselves uncomfortable and we grow. It's what makes us men. The modern weak man is no different than this Ahab. There's a whole spirit, like they talk about the spirit of Ahab and the spirit of Jezebel. Ahab can't exist without Jezebel, or Jezebel can't exist without Ahab. Strong men don't allow Jezebel to exist. And so there is a culture of a spirit of Ahab over men in general, in America, in the world, but specifically also in the church. We're afraid to take stands. We're afraid to make people uncomfortable. We're afraid to press forward. When men stop leading, someone else always takes control, and it's never for the better. See, women don't want a vacuum. Women want to be led, but when a man won't, they will step up and do the job. When feminine energy takes over and replaces masculine energy, no one is happy. No one is better for it. There are actually scriptures in the Old Testament where it talks about if a woman is your ruler, that's a sign of a curse from God. Gender roles, men being masculine, women being feminine, is part of the orthodoxy that I have touched on in several episodes. It is the natural order of things. And when we try to upset that, when we try to go contrary to that, it doesn't work out good for anybody. We're fighting against how we were created, how God put us on this earth to be. When men are too nice, they get ignored. Men stop leading, so women take over. There's a whole rash of these, like, high status women. These women who think they've achieved it all. They've achieved this great level. They actually can't find what they would call a good man, because so often they're surrounded by weak men. They're surrounded by passivity. And so they claim that there's no good men out there. But when a good man actually stands up, they have convinced themselves that a strong, aggressive man is not a good man. But there's a part of them that secretly knows, which is why they always marry weak men, but then they have affairs with strong men. Which is why women always date the bad boy, but they marry the good boy when secretly they really want the bad boy, because that is what they are subconsciously. And when I say bad boy, I'm talking about the guy with a little machismo, the guy with the broad shoulders and maybe the big muscles and a beard. I understand that I'm talking about myself. I'm doing this a little tongue-in-cheek. The fawns. Women want the fawns, but then they settle because they think they're supposed to for this weak man because they can dominate him. But in truth, in reality, they would be much happier with a man. They would be much happier with a man's man. And all of this confusion that's happened, this gender confusion between men's roles and women's roles and the degrading of masculinity and feminized men and masculinized women in my opinion, is a huge contributing factor to this, what I call the transgender crisis. Call it what you want. It's a crisis. It is a violation of the natural order of things that men want to be women and women want to be men. But men have been so emasculated. They feel like this feminine energy is so elevated that they actually end up deciding they want to be that. And if you notice with men, with transgender men, with men who, I don't even know how to put it, but with men who try to be women, like they over-stylize it, they overdo it. They give them the big blonde Barbie wig and they wear sequins and they just go over the top because they're trying to epitomize this feminine energy. And it goes the other way too. When women are trying to be men, they try to do the stereotypical man thing. It's not healthy. It is a crisis, and it is all connected with this idea that this illusion that we have that has degraded the male energy, the masculine energy. And it's been weakness in men. Like when I talked about the story of Ahab and Jezebel, as I stated earlier, Jezebel could not have existed without Ahab. One of the things that is an evidence of all of this is plummeting testosterone levels among men, which causes plummeting fertility levels. But anyway, the average testosterone level of an 18 to 25-year-old male now is the same as a 65-year-old male 20 years ago. If you ask me, it's been on purpose. Men with low testosterone are more compliant. They're more willing to go with the flow. They're more willing to follow the story that they're being told. What causes low testosterone? Well, for one thing, they've shown that when men do men stuff, their testosterone levels actually go up. When men lift weights, when men hunt, when men are successful, when men push each other, their testosterone levels actually go up. Now, there's other things too. Processed food, increased soy consumption, pharmaceuticals. These things also contribute to diminishing testosterone levels. It's not a one-stop shop. There's a lot of things that need to be fixed. If men were meant to be passive, history wouldn't have been built on the backs of these warriors. And so men, rise up. Start doing the things. Your testosterone levels will go up, and all of a sudden you realize that you don't actually think the way that you used to think. So one of the things that really is encouraging to me is that over the course of the last year, there has been a rise in masculine energy. And guess what? The world, they're throwing a fit, but they actually love it, and they are responding. For the last 4 years in the White House, we have not had masculine energy. Joe Biden is passive. Joe Biden, don't even know where he is half the time. Like, he displays weakness and frailty to the world. Last fall, when President Trump was elected, there was a shift. There was a whole vibe shift, not just in politics, but throughout the country. All of a sudden, it started to be cool again to be masculine. Why? Because he exudes masculine energy. He and Joe Biden are relatively the same age, but the energy they give off is so different. And he has surrounded himself by strong masculine men like J.D. Vance, like Kash Patel, like Pete Hegseth, Robert Kennedy Jr. These are men who want to restore American values. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that they had to say, but one thing that they are doing is they are restoring things to a certain order. The military is seeing record numbers of enlistments over the course of the last 2 months. Family has taken center stage again. To me, J.D. Vance, almost single-handedly restoring the greatness of the traditional American family. Everywhere he goes, he's got his wife with him, and his wife looks at him like he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Why? Because he's weak? Because he tried to appease her at every occasion? No, because he's strong. He's a strong man, and he stands up, and he leads his family. He's got his kids with him all the time. He is like the family man. He is the man that every other guy in this country wants to be right now. Not just because he's the vice president of the United States, but because he has a loving wife and beautiful children. And he is successful, and he is strong, and he is aggressive, and he says what he needs to say. As President Trump and his team are fighting against DEI programs, people are going, they're restoring the idea of merit. They're restoring the idea that we get what we earn. Not because of how we were born, or who we like to have sex with, or what our nationality is, or skin color is. If we earned the position, if we earned that right, then we get it. That's what they are trying to restore to this country. All of that to bring us back to the story of Ahab and Jezebel. Well, actually, it's just Jezebel now, because Ahab ends up dying. And now we skip ahead a little bit into 2 Kings. We're in 2 Kings chapter 9, starting with verse 30. And we're talking about the character of Jehu. Jehu is one of the military leaders, and he is tracking down Jezebel. He's chasing her down. And it says, when Jehu came to Jezreel, Jezebel heard of it, and she painted her eyes and adorned her head and looked out the window. She's getting herself all pretty. And as Jehu entered the gate, she said, "Is it peace, you Zimri, murderer of your master?" She's trying to use that feminine energy. And he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side?" Who? 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out the window at him, and he said, "Throw her down." And I just have the written word, but I can imagine he said it something like, "Throw her down." So they threw her down, and some of her blood splattered on the wall and on the horses, and then they trampled her. Then he went in and ate and drank. He just left her body in the street. That's how much this woman was hated because of who she was. And he said, "See now to this cursed woman and bury her, for she is a king's daughter." He's still honored. She's still worthy of burial. But when they went to bury her, they found no more than her skull and the feet and the palms of her hands. She was trampled and torn to pieces. And I'm going to use an analogy right now because I think it's apropos. I think it applies. So we've had this Ahab spirit that's allowed this Jezebel spirit. So we've had this Ahab spirit in this country that's allowed a Jezebel spirit to rise up. But what does it take to defeat that Jezebel spirit? It took a man's man to rise up and say, "Throw her down." And that's literally what it feels like is going on in the country right now. There is a generation of Jehu that's risen up and said, "Throw her down." And they're throwing a fit. Jezebel is up in the air. She's about to get chunked down the wall. And she's flipping a fit. Throw her down. Men, throw her down. Throw down that Jezebel spirit. Rise up. Put off the passivity that you are fighting against right now, every day. You have been told that for most of your life. You have been beat down. You have been ridiculed. You have been told that everything about who you are is wrong. Well, it's not. The world needs you to rise up right now. The world needs that masculine energy right now. It's not toxic. It's who you are. Be who you are. Be who you were meant to be. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm sure you're picking up on it. This is something that the world needs us right now. Don't be afraid. If you are afraid, go anyway. And if you don't act, somebody will. Maybe other men, maybe good men, maybe bad men, maybe women. So don't let that happen. You be the one. The world's not always going to be safe. Like I said before, we could be facing all kinds of disasters. All kinds of bad things could happen. If you're out of shape, get in shape. Start lifting weights. Start eating better. Start getting your testosterone levels up. Act like a man. Lift weights. Take some martial arts. Learn how to shoot a gun. Don't have to wait for permission to do that. I'm not giving you my permission. I'm giving you my encouragement. I'm pushing you. And don't wait. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next week. Do something right now. Start today. So if you got anything out of this, if you feel like other men or even women, young or old, could appreciate what I have to say, hit the share button, put it out on social media, like it, do all the things. And while you're at it, comment masculinity down below and I'll reply and we can start a conversation. I help men with things like this. Help them with training plans, with diet programs, with building strong, healthy habits, and becoming the man that you want to be. I'm here to help. I'm here to encourage you, but I'm also here to give you practical advice. So, talk to you next time.
So if you like this content, please give it a rating, a review, and share it with your friends. Also, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about me and what I'm all about and what I can maybe do for you, check out my website at thedangerousgentleman.org. That's thedangerousgentleman.org. Thank you for listening.